could we see a coalition of the left in Ontario? There's a lot of speculation that it could happen. While the Liberals hold the reins of power for the time being, they have seriously ticked off organised labour, particularly teachers. Now, without NDP support, the Liberals could be in serious trouble. And if Liberal leadership hopeful Kathleen Wynne remains ahead of the pack, it could be even more likely, as she's already left of Liberal to start with. Conservative leader Tim Hudak issued this warning about a possible coalition.
Well, I'm very worried about that notion of the NDP and Liberals getting together. I mean, we saw that last year, and what we got in the budget was higher taxes, more government spending, and we got a credit rating downgraded immediately by the credit rating agencies. I think that Andrea Horwath is looking at the wrong things. The last thing we want to do is prop up a Liberal government and go down a path of even more government spending and higher taxes.
Andrea Horwath, who Hudak referred to, she's the NDP leader. So the NDP in Ontario sure wouldn't have a problem dictating the direction of Have-Not Ontario. So could it happen? Joining us now for more on the implications, Toronto Sun Queen's Park columnist Christina Blizzard. Christina, is this far-fetched fantasy stuff in the final days of the campaign, or could this be a very, very realistic prospect after the new leader's elected?
Well, I think it would be unlikely only from the point of view that the NDP is actually doing very well in the polls. Andrea Horwath, the leader of the NDP, is very popular here, and the Liberals aren't. So I just look at it and kind of wonder what the NDP is going to get out of this. I think that people have had it up to here with the Liberals, with the shutting down the legislature. But of course, the NDP did prop up the Liberals through last year's budget.
Well, see, to me, the question is all about the unions. And if my focus is wrong, please correct me on this. It just seems to me that the unions are really amped up right now, and they're not on the side of the Liberals. We know they're not going to go to the Conservatives. If I'm Andrea Horwath and the NDP and popular as she is right now, I'd be tempted to take advantage of the union animus toward the Liberals, enlist them, and then roll the dice on an election and possibly a majority and, at worst, a minority government.
Yeah, absolutely, Charles. And that is why I don't think a coalition is likely. In the past 3 elections, the Liberals have been supported by the so-called Working Families Coalition, which is really just a front for some very powerful unions, including the teacher unions, who the Liberals are now at war with. So the key question after this leadership convention is, where will those powerful unions go to? And of course, Andrea Horwath is hoping, I can't see them going with the Liberals after all that's been said and done over these teacher protests. I can see them moving to Andrea Horwath and the NDP, and that probably spells very big trouble for the Liberals. I suspect if we had an election in the spring, which is very likely, that the Liberals could end up being third party. And why would Andrea Horwath want to chain herself to basically what would be an albatross, which is what the Liberal Party is right now?
Moving forward, I'm just wondering what the pitch of the Liberals would be. Would they be telling Ontarians, please don't vote for the NDP because you'll be giving the unions too much power?
Exactly. You've got them off at the knees. They took over the NDP ground when they first came to power in 2003. They wooed all these very powerful unions on side. And it's, I'm not quite sure what their platform. You've also got to look at Britain with where they have a coalition, and you've got to, wonder, in a coalition government like that, the Lib Dems in Britain have absolutely, how are they going to go into the next election? They're going to be tainted with anything the Conservative government has done, and I think it sort of spells the death for the Lib Dems, and I think the NDP here must be looking at that and thinking this is not a good plan for them to go forward. They're doing well in the polls. They just, going to roll the dice and go on their own, I think. Now,
here's the thing, Christina. I don't think a coalition is out of the question after that spring election. I agree with you. Spring is most likely for an election, and here's why. If Horwath continues to do well, and if she does well in the debates, and she generally acquits herself very well in debating. So if she emerges on top, but with a minority, she'll still need a junior partner, and that's not going to be the Tories. That's going to be the Liberals.
Absolutely. And I think the other issue after the election, if it's a minority government, they are going to have to make it work. People of Ontario, I think they probably wouldn't mind another election, having seen what happened with the gas plants and some of the other scandals. I don't think that voters will mind another election this spring, but if it's another minority government, they will expect the politicians to make it work for the next 3 or 4 years at least. They will not want to go back to the polls, and they will just basically tell them, look, get on with it. We don't want to hear from you. Get along any way you will, but don't send us back to the polls.
But find me a scenario in that case. I mean, if you've got the NDP as a senior partner majority, the Liberals, the junior partner, as part of this minority regime that could last 2, 3, and even 4 years, how on earth can you create a scenario there where the unions don't have as much power as they have had for the last 9 years?
Well, a lot will be at stake in how does Tim Hudak and the Conservative, how will they do in this this coming election? He has come out with a very strong anti-union platform. He's talking about right-to-work legislation because, of course, he's been the victim of this so-called Working Families Coalition over the years. It has not been so much pro-liberal as it has been anti-conservative. So it will be interesting to see how he fares if he gets a strong, a goodly number of seats in this minority. I think that they are going to be the people who are poised to, with more power and more say in what's going to happen, because you won't be able to ignore them. If the Liberals, meanwhile, I suspect will be in disarray, because I don't think they're going to be doing very well in the next election. And it's, I think it's just anyone's game. I think politics in this province over the next couple of years are going to be fascinating to watch, and a lot hinges on what happens in this election.
Christina, thanks for the astute analysis as always. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.